Hi, I'm Danette Baird, Christian psychotherapist, and I'm here with Carrie Farr on his show In Your Corner. And today we're going to be talking about suicide, so stick around.
Hi friend, I'm Carrie Farr. Welcome to In Your Corner. We've got our dear friend Danette Baird, who is a Christian therapist, back on the program. Danette, what a joy and an honor to see you.
Thanks, Carrie.
Always great to see you.
It's great to see you.
You know, friend, just a day or two ago, I was talking to my son-in-law, and he was telling me a story about a 43-year-old woman that was very talented, that was a very dear friend of his. She was actually in the loan business, and he was in the real estate business, and said that she was the best closing agent that he'd ever seen. And last Friday they had corresponded several times, and he just happened to send her a message and tell her how outstanding she was, and he'd been working with her, you know, for 10 or 15 years, and told her she was just the best. And then he heard that that very day she committed suicide. And so, friend, today, you know, with all of the adversity that people are going through, people have lost their jobs, people are on welfare, people are sick and discouraged. Hey, we want to encourage you today and want to help you you know, get over maybe some of the things that you're going through. Danette, what do you think causes someone to commit suicide?
Well, basically, Carrie, it comes down to when someone commits suicide, they've determined that the pain of dying is less than the pain of living. So somehow, in the way that they're focusing on the world and with their thought processes and their emotional state, they're deciding, here's life and here's death, and for some reason, the way that they're viewing the world, they're saying, you know what, it's going to be less painful for me to end my life than it is for me to continue living. So,
wow. You know, but I mean, this young lady, beautiful young lady, in the prime of her life, had 3 young children at home. You know, can people not see, you know, the harm that it does to the children when they do something like that?
you know, really at the time that a person would end their life, I think that it's an emotional state where the person is really not recognizing their worth and value. There's something blocking them from being able to see that, or they wouldn't do it, because it's a tragedy, and there's so much pain that's left behind for the survivors. And so I really think that if a person understood what the impact of that was going to be, and really how important they were to other people, they probably wouldn't do it.
They wouldn't do it. You know, you mentioned something interesting there. You said they're not recognizing their worth or value. Does obviously somebody that commits suicide feels totally hopeless?
Yes, at that moment, it's likely that they feel badly, and they feel like things aren't going to change. They don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. They're stuck in an emotional state of probably hopelessness and sadness. I mean, there's some people that commit suicide when they're in a state of anger, and it's more revenge. So it's a state of agitation, and I'll show someone. A lot of times, however, it is just that state of hopelessness and despair.
You know, I think I heard Zig Ziglar say, Zig used to be my Sunday school teacher, and we've interviewed him on the program before, and I think he said that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
It's a really good way of putting it.
You know, because we all have battles. I mean, it seems to me that life is, you know, filled with peaks and valleys, and we all go through periods of time where life is very stressful, life is very painful, but don't people generally get over those things if they can just persevere?
I mean, if they can, and if they have a way to process their emotions, I think so many of the problems in our society, not just suicide, but violence towards others and addictions and all of the so many of the challenges that we face. There's people are having some sort of painful emotion, and they don't know how to get released from that and process it. So they think they're going to feel like that, and it's just not going to end. Where if an individual has the insight that, okay, I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling angry, what do I need to do to express that appropriately? Because when you look at the layers of emotions, and I'm big on this, you've heard me say this before.
About this before.
But I mean, underneath anger, there's always sadness, and underneath sadness, there's some fear or insecurity, and underneath that, there's regret. And underneath all, if we peel those layers off of the emotions of an individual when they're in one of those emotions, there's always love, understanding, forgiveness, and desire underneath. That's how God made us. So someone stuck in one of those layers of the onion and thinking that life is going to stay like that, either they don't have the skills to express it, or they don't realize that if they go through it instead of avoid it, that if they process their emotions, there will be that love underneath. Yes.
Yeah. Friends, you're watching In Your Corner, and we've got a dear friend, Danette Baird, on the program, who is a Christian therapist, and we're talking about people getting so despondent that they just give up, that they commit suicide. And, we want to encourage you. We don't want to see you do that. Danette, you talk about, people getting stuck, you call it in a certain phase, I would say a rut, and for a brief period of time, they're not thinking rationally. And I've had 2 or 3 friends of mine that have actually committed suicide. Even a person that had been in my Sunday school class that I taught
Wow.
in a Sunday school class, and you don't understand. Surely they can't be thinking rationally. Is there something that happens to people where maybe something for a period of time is not normal that causes people to, take their lives?
There can be a chemical component to it in terms of brain chemistry and the level of serotonin in someone's system. If someone's under a lot of stress and their body is depleting the chemicals that control mood, there can definitely be that. It could be just a reaction to some sort of life occurrence, and it's hard to know from the outside looking in. You just never know what's going on with an individual and how they're interpreting their world and filtering things. It's really, when you think about that, it's so important for us to be compassionate and kind as we look at others in our world day to day. We just never know what someone is going through, and how just a small word of encouragement could make the difference of.
Could help somebody get over the hump.
Yes, and I just heard a story just this past week. There's a little church in Muncie, Indiana, where I've gone some recently, and they have a sign outside of their church. It's a little country church, Antioch Church of the Brethren, and they change that sign from time to time. And the woman that is in charge of changing the sign, they didn't get around to it, and the sign said, "Who am I? Who am I?" And the answer was, Jesus says, you're mine. And so they found out that there was a woman who was driving down the road, I guess it was last week or the week before, who was on her way home from wherever to take her life. And she saw that sign and thought, okay, I'm God's. I can't take my life. Who am I? Jesus says, I'm, that you're mine or I'm yours. And
right.
So that
and he's
sign,
the giver of life.
Yes.
And the taker of life, and we're not supposed to take our own lives.
So she was, that thought,
Mm-hmm.
that changed her thought process. I mean, she was intending it. And that sign made the difference for her to where she was able to think in a different way and then feel a different way. And it kept her from taking her life.
Wow, that's great. Let me digress a minute or two. I was a boxer as a young man, a boxing coach for over 20 years of my life. But I've gone through tremendous adversity in my life, tremendous pain. For a number of years, I had a business that was failing, and I couldn't get out from under it, and it was absolutely hopeless. And I can remember a time going into my closet away from anyone else. And I'm a grown man. I'm probably in my 30s at the time. And I can remember just sitting down in that closet and just crying my eyes out. Yeah, I'm a man. And yeah, I was...
Big boys do cry.
Big boys cry. You know, I mean, hey, it's all right. I think sometimes men, especially, you think, hey, I'm too tough to cry. No, you're not too tough to cry. I was raised not to cry. I mean, when I was growing up, if I got a whipping and I started whining or crying, you better dry it up, boy. I mean, I was raised that way. That was, you know, men are taught to be tough and not to feel these emotions. Now, do we, if we're going through battles, do we need to cry? Do we need to, you know, let that...
Absolutely.
What I'm trying to say is men try to fight that emotion. Is there some way that they can just go somewhere and just break down and have that release?
I think that is an extremely powerful and critical thing to do. And unfortunately, our society does encourage men to stuff their sadness and their fear. And there's just tremendous power in tears. I mean, the release of that emotion and the flow of more positive emotions underneath it when a person is able to do that. It's very powerful. It takes courage, and it's really a sign of strength. That's what I would say to any men in the audience. It's really a sign of strength to be able to do that, and it's really, really powerful. It really disempowers us to disown any of our emotions. We were made to express them appropriately and release them and move them away from our bodies by the act of expressing them.
By expressing them. And folks, I'm going to, and just Danette and I are going to talk some more about this, and I want her to give you some advice on how to overcome this. And I'm going to tell you my personal story where I actually contemplated suicide. And that's why I'm so sensitive to this, because I've actually contemplated that after losing my first wife to cancer in 2001. And I want to come back and talk about that. But let's say, Danette, that somebody out there is contemplating suicide. They're having these thoughts in their mind. How do they deal with those thoughts, push those thoughts away, overcome that, get back up on their feet, and find life again?
I would say, first of all, just remember that you're not alone. You may feel alone when we're in pain. Sometimes we feel like we're the only one, or if we're trapped in guilt or shame, we feel there's a dark cloud over us or a block between us and others. But just know, no matter how you feel in this moment, you're not alone.
This too shall pass. It's
absolutely,
true, isn't it?
Absolutely. And ask for help. It's a very strong, courageous thing to ask for help. Find a connection. You may not feel like connecting, but please, if you have any thoughts along those lines, reach out to someone. People do care. People do love you, and there is hope. And you know, you're just seeing a few strokes of the painting at this time. You know, I think about my life sometimes, and you know, you look at a painting, and there's some of the darkness really brings incredible definition to the light and makes the things that are more colorful, more powerful. And if you can just back up a little bit and look at the whole picture of your life, no matter what it is you're dealing with, it can turn around, and it can actually be used as something, it has a force for good in some way in your life and in other people's lives. So please know that you're loved, know that this too shall pass, and reach out and let somebody help you. We all need help.
So know that you're loved, this too shall pass, and reach out for help. You know, and I want to come back to that in a minute. Folks, I want to just tell you, in 2001, I'd been married for 32 years to my childhood sweetheart. I lost her to cancer. And I went through a period of time where I was so depressed that I wasn't myself. I was a shell. I mean, you know, I'm not a big man, but I'm still consider myself a masculine man, and able to deal with a lot of circumstances. But at that point in time, I was broken, and I really wasn't myself. So my parents were still alive at the time. I went to Florida to visit my parents, and I was under so much turmoil, so much pain, so much sorrow in my loss that I couldn't sit still. I was with my parents for a day or two, and I decided to get in my car and leave. My dad said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Dad, I don't know where I'm going, but I can't sit here. I've got to go." So I got in my vehicle and I started crisscrossing across the state of Florida. I ended up somewhere around St. Pete Beach at night, and I went and spent the night in a hotel. The next morning I got up and I went to the beach and ran that morning for about 20 minutes. And as I was walking back to my vehicle, a lady of the night, a prostitute, pulled up next to my car. And she had her blouse completely open and there was absolutely nothing underneath. And she shook her body at me and motioned for me to come over in her direction. And here I was, brokenhearted, depressed, and when I looked at her, immediately I thought, I don't want any part of that. And so I got in my car and I started back across this bridge. And I've since learned that this bridge is the second leading bridge in America where suicides are committed. And as I was going across the top of that bridge, it's about 100 stories or 100 feet high. And as I got to the top of that bridge, Danette, a voice said to me, "Stop the car and jump to your death." And I mean, I'm sitting there contemplating suicide. And as I'm contemplating stopping the car and jumping to my death, a soft, gentle voice said to me, "Your daughter, Christy, and your granddaughter, Camden, are still alive, and they need you." And friends, I want to tell you, just knowing that I was still needed gave me the strength to carry on. That helped me through my darkest hour. You know, within a year after that, God gave me another wonderful wife, and and I've been able to heal. So that situation, as painful as it was, and even though I still miss my childhood sweetheart that I was married to for 32 years, I'll see her in heaven, and I was able to overcome that because I had something to hold on to, that I knew that God still had a plan and a purpose for my life, and I knew that somebody needed me.
That's very powerful, yes. And you brought up a really important point too. You heard two different voices when you were there on the bridge, and I think when we're in a state of depression, a lot of times we're disconnected somewhat from the voice at our core, where the still small voice. And so when we're hearing voices in our head, the voices when we're disconnected, a lot of times will be those critical voices of just do that, or nobody's going to miss you, whatever those negative kind of voices are. And the voice of truth that is housed in our temple, you said that was a softer, more gentle voice. So anyone dealing with this, listen to the voices, discern where they're from. The voice of truth is going to be the still small voice that it might be harder for you to believe when you're stuck in a disconnected state. Just take a few breaths and listen for that still small voice.
And as I was going across that bridge, I believe that was satanic oppression,
yes,
trying to get me to take my life. And friend, I want to tell you, if you're having suicidal thoughts and you feel something speaking to you, or a voice speaking to you, it's not God telling you to commit suicide. It is Satan. So reject that. The fact that, Danette, that I realized that my daughter and granddaughter were still alive gave me strength to carry on. But I read something where somebody said, "Hey, you may not be somebody in this world. Just like I'm nobody special. You may not be somebody in this world, but to somebody, you are the world." You see, I had at that time a little granddaughter that was 2 years of age, and I had a daughter, and to that little grandbaby, her papa was the world. And so had I listened to that satanic or that oppressive voice and killed myself, look at the harm I would have done to my daughter and my granddaughter. And friends, that was 11 years ago. I'm still alive. I've got another grandchild. Look at the time, Danette, that I've been able to redeem and spend with my daughter and her family. And I would have missed out on all that. Friend, don't miss out on what God has in store for you. God has a plan and a purpose for your life, and people need to be encouraged, don't they, Danette?
Absolutely. And God can redeem anything. So don't get trapped in condemnation or, oh, how am I ever going to be redeemed from this? It doesn't matter what you've done or what you've thought. It is just God can redeem anything. And the moment that we're able to surrender and just realize that we have infinite value and worth with Him, and we aren't our past, we aren't even our thoughts, at our core, we have got Christ's image stamped on our hearts, and we have a purpose and a destiny and a value, and it is never too late for that to be redeemed. If you are breathing, take a deeper breath and just realize that truth. There's something positive around the corner.
There's something positive around the corner. Friend, I want to tell you right now, God created you. I think it was Maya Angelou, the great poet, that said, and God don't make no junk. God has a plan and a purpose for your life. And God loves you. God loves you so much. In fact, the Bible says in John 3:16 that He loves you so much that He sent His only Son to die in your place. God loves you. And not only does God love you, there are other people that love you. And I want to encourage you today. Don't give up. Don't quit. Don't, chuck it in. Just keep fighting. We're going to go through peaks and valleys, but if you're in a valley and if you'll just keep walking through that valley, eventually you're going to come out of that valley and you're going to start going up a hill, and eventually you're going to be on a mountaintop, and that mountaintop experience, and you won't stay there. Life is peaks and valleys. But number one, give your life to Jesus Christ and recognize that you are a miraculous creation and that God has created you for a specific purpose and has a plan for your life. And who knows what that is, but you might be able to minister to help somebody else. Right, Danette?
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's power in brokenness. I think I still have it on my keychain. Let's see. Excuse me. Hold on for a second. This is still on here. Yeah, this is just my 6-year-old niece Caitlin was looking at my keychain one day, and I've got part of a little canister on here that was meant to keep, stuff in, pills or mints or whatever. And I hadn't removed this. I'd lost the other part of it, and she saw this on my keychain, and she said, "What is this?" And I'm like, "Well, it's part of something else, but it's broken. Aunt Danette's going to throw it away." And she looked at me and she's like, "You can make really good things out of broken things." And she knows children. They know the truth. And she saw the value of this, that this could be used in some way, in a positive way, and that really you can make really cool stuff out of broken things.
Wow. Can I follow up on that? You and I are friends, right? And you're a therapist, but you've recently gone through a period of brokenness yourself. And God has healed you from that, right? Or is in the process of healing you?
Yes, in the process. And I can really, I think my niece Caitlin, that was a good message for me. And when she shared that with me, I was feeling extremely broken, and it was a message to me too. But yes, I'm amazed now at the parts of this that God is redeeming and using for good in my life, where when I look at the broken road, certain things wouldn't be unfolding now related to my purpose and my destiny.
Because you're following Him, and He's opening up doors after the brokenness, right?
Yes.
I've seen it in my life, Danette. Friends, I am absolutely nobody special whatsoever. But Danette, after my first wife died 11 years ago, I had never written a book. I had never been on a television program like this. But since that time, I have written 4 books. I have a television program where we broadcast nationally and we minister to others. Friend, had I listened to that voice and quit, had given up, had destroyed my life, I wouldn't have been able to do any of this. And here I'm in the latter part of my life, the autumn of my life, but God is using me more now in the autumn of my life than He was in the prime of my life. So you don't know what God has in store for you. Yield your life to Jesus Christ. Get up and carry on. If you're depressed, don't lay on the couch. Get up. The worst thing you can do is lay down and suck your thumb or get in a fetal position. Get up and start fighting, get around some people. You know, people will encourage you. Go to church, read your Bible, and you'll find that you're going to be encouraged. Hey, God still has a plan and a purpose for your life, and God still has something special for you to do, and there's somebody that still needs you, friends, so don't quit. And lastly, I'd like to say, if you need help, hey, go to our website, inyourcorner.tv. If you need help finding somebody to help you, send us an email and we'll find help for you. We'll find somebody to help you. I'll either call you myself or we'll get Danette to call you. We'll get somebody to call and help you. And Danette, I want to thank you so much for coming in and sharing this time together. And
It's my pleasure.
We're both telling you, don't quit. Don't give up. Thanks for watching the program today. Friends, tune in again, same channel, same time next week.
Kerry Farr has experienced many tragedies in his life, and through the grace of Christ has been able to turn them into triumphs. In his book, Fight the Good Fight, he shares his God-given strategies for getting back up when life has knocked you down. Kerry feels so passionately about communicating the gospel message that he wants to give you his book for free. You can go to inyourcorner.tv and download a copy. Or if you want to help Kerry take his collection of powerful Christian stories around the world, for a minimum donation of $20, he'll send you a personally autographed copy of his book, Fight the Good Fight, as a thank you gift.
Hi friends, we're in the boxing gym today and I want to appeal to you. You know, it costs us a lot of money to keep this program on the air, and my wife and I have been the primary sponsors of In Your Corner for about 3 years now, and we could really use some help. If you're a business owner and you would like to sponsor good Christian programming where we minister to people, we'd like to have you as a sponsor. Or if you're an individual and you'd like to partner with us each month and help us keep this program on the air, we'd like your help too. If you can help, please send your tax-deductible gift to P.O. Box 218-425, Nashville, Tennessee 37221, or you can go to our website, inyourcorner.tv, and In Your Corner is a 501(c), so your gift is tax-deductible. So you may get knocked down, but and one thing that I learned in boxing as an amateur boxer, as long as I got up after I'd been knocked down, I wasn't knocked out. So if you get up, you might still have to fight, and you might have to fight a few more rounds, but if you'll just keep fighting and not quit, you'll be victorious.